Hey YouTube, welcome back to my channel. Let's make a top together. Sew along with me in this video to learn how to make this simple yet festive top. Grab your supplies. Start with thread, and then grab your fabric. I'm using a double knit here. Some fun lace for detail. And the pattern that I'm using is one I drafted myself, but I'm going to do you guys a favor. I'm going to put a fun pattern that I found in the description so you can follow along with a simple turtleneck pattern. Now it's time to cut. Lay your pattern pieces out and begin cutting. As you can see, I'm using spools of thread to weight my pattern down. If you don't have paperweights, this works perfectly well. If you do have paperweights, bonus points. I'm using a rotary blade just because I find it makes for a much quicker cut, and a more accurate cut at that. Take extra care to make sure that your grain line matches up with the grain of your fabric. Again, weight your pattern down with whatever you have accessible and then finish cutting out your fabric. Next, you're going to want to grab some chalk because it's time to mark the notches. Notches are incredibly important pieces of the pattern because they tell you where exactly you're supposed to put your fabric together. I've marked notches on my sleeve, and now it's time to sew the side seam together. As you can see, the notches on this sleeve indicate that this is the back side. Sew your sleeve seam. I'm using a knit stitch here, but if your machine doesn't have this particular stitch, you can just use a zigzag stitch. It works just as well. Once you're done, set your machine to a straight stitch again. Set the stitch length to a basting stitch, or the longest stitch length. Grab the top thread of your basting stitch and pull to gather the fabric. This will create the bottom of your sleeves. Make sure that the width of the gathered fabric matches that of your sleeves. Sew the side seam of the bottom of your sleeves. If you have a serger, now is the time to use it. I like using sergers because they finish your seam edges and they make them look really nice. Pin the tops of your sleeves to the bottom of your sleeves. Take care to make sure that the seams match up. As you're pinning, move the gathers around to make sure that the gathers are even all the way around. Once you're satisfied, you can sew them together. Head over to your serger to finish the edge of the seam you just created. At this stage, you can also serge the hem of your sleeves. Now you can work on the bodice. Mark the notches, especially the waist seam. Pin the side seams together. I'm leaving an opening about 4 inches up from where the hem will be. Put a pin in to indicate where you will stop sewing. Sew your shoulder seams and your side seams. For the shoulder seams, I'm using a regular knit stitch, but for the side seams, I'm using a straight stitch because at the bottom, I have a little vent opening. This will allow the side seams to lay completely flat. You can finish the edges of your seam allowance with a serger, or you can do a zigzag stitch or a knit stitch to reinforce them. Prep the collar piece by sewing the center back seam. I'm using a regular knit stitch for this. I'm a huge advocate for ironing as you go because I do think it makes a huge difference. Let's turn on the gravity iron and get ironing. Press all of the newly created seams. If you have a pressing ham, now would be the perfect time to grab one. If you don't, just take your time and press each seam little by little so that way you don't damage any curves. Pin your sleeves and your collar to the bodice fabric. Take note of any notches and pin where they should be placed. Attach the sleeves and the collar to the main bodice. Sewing curves is difficult, so make sure you take your time and go slowly to ensure that there's no fabric slippage and all of your notches match up. Serge the edges of your newly created seams to ensure a clean finish. Grab a double needle so you can hem the bottoms of your sleeves as well as the bottom of the bodice. I'm using a ballpoint double needle, which is specific for knits. If you don't have a double needle, you can just do a zigzag stitch to finish the hems. To finish the side seams, I'm adding lace to the vent openings. Grab your lace and place it under the fabric. Move it around until it's the desired position and pin. Use a straight stitch and stitch as close to the edge as possible to secure your lace. Back to the iron we go. Make sure everything is pressed flat. And just like that, the shirt is done. If you have a label, now is the time to sew one in. If you end up making this shirt, tag me on Instagram at Lucia Designs. I would love to see what you make. Hashtag the berry brunch top. Thank you so much for watching. It means the world. I'm glad to see that people are enjoying these videos as much as I've enjoyed making them. Leave a comment to let me know if there's anything specific that you want to see on this channel, and stay tuned for the next one.